Is it going to stay on?
Okay. Yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm Julie.
Hi, Julie. John. Nice to meet you. And you're representing which company?
Shannon Mouse appointed me. I'm in Janice's district.
John, I guess. Nice to meet you.
No. They have two kinds.
All right, can I have everybody's attention? The reason I'm talking into the mic is because I'm doing a mic demonstration. One of the biggest things we want to make sure of is that the public can hear us when we're talking in this room. And so what's happening is you'll see how close I am to the microphone. You guys need to be that close in order for the mics to pick you up. On the wireless mics, the red ring means that you're muted. It's a little button in the front. You just tap it once. Tap it again, it goes unmute to green. On those mics, there's actually a switch. It should be facing up. If it's down, it's muted. If it's up, it is on and live, hot. Do you guys want to try it out really quick? Just talk into your mic, say something, I don't know, maybe your name.
Hi, my name is Julie.
You're muted.
Craig Anderson.
A bit closer.
Craig Anderson.
There you go. Hi, this is John testing. Nope, I think you're muted.
That up. Okay, testing. Can you hear me now? This is John Ickes.
Okay, you good?
I'm good.
All right, you know how to use it?
We are waiting for the city manager and we can't go live till 5 o'clock.
I can hear you guys. You guys want to tell me to go live? Give me about 30 seconds notice. So when you're ready, just tell us.
Braden, can you text or call Mike? See if he's on his way.
close. It's close.
Yeah, if you wanted to call it to order, then I'll explain the process for that.
Right. I'd like to call to order the Street Tree Committee meeting dated November 11th, 2021. And with that, I will turn that over to Carrie.
So normally on all of our advisory committees, the mayor's nomination to the committee is the chair. Since we don't have an appointment by the mayor, the appropriate process tonight would be for you to nominate someone amongst yourselves and then vote if you would like to have that person chair the meeting for this evening. So do we have any nominations for chair? So we have John nominated. Julie, would you like to?
I second that nomination.
And so we'll vote. Go ahead with your vote, Julie.
Aye.
John?
I accept. Is that what I should say?
That's fine. And Craig.
Yes, aye.
And then
Thank
Craig.
you, sir.
Are you a yes vote, Craig? Okay. So we'll turn it over to our chair, John Ickes, for roll call.
Okay, roll call will start with my left.
Craig Anderson.
Julie Garcia.
And I am John Ickes.
And we're going to go into oral communications. I do have 2 written comments received that I printed copies for you. And those members of the public have also requested to speak via telephone. So we're going to transfer them into the meeting if you just give me a moment. You're connected to the meeting. You can start your comments.
Yeah, my name is Sherry Wasson. I'm a birder, a naturalist, and a longtime resident of Upland. I'm commenting today on the Urban Forest Management Plan. Specifically, I'd like to ask the committee to recommend modification to the list of approved tree species. With the exception of the incense cedar, the current list does not include any California native species, and it favors smaller species such as the crepe myrtle over species that attain greater stature. While smaller trees may help the city to save money on tree maintenance costs, we lose the value that larger tree species can bring to our town, the residents, and the wildlife. In addition, prioritizing smaller trees is not in accordance with Upland's General Plan Policy, OSC 2.5. And let me read that. Quote, prioritize the planting of large shade tree species, greater to or equal to 50 feet in height, over smaller species to facilitate a larger canopy of trees that will serve to reduce the heat island effect, lower energy costs, sequester carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, reduce stormwater runoff, and increase water retention and water quality. Now, these are all really important and significant benefits our urban forest has the potential to provide if we plant the right trees. As far as native tree species goes, they preserve and improve biodiversity as they provide food sources and habitat for our native insects, the pollinators, birds, and animals. And I'd like to suggest specifically that coast live oak, Engelmann oak, and the California sycamore be added to Upland's list of approved tree species, and that the oaks be given preferred status. Of course, these are all large trees, and they're native to our area. For a short article on the value of oaks in particular, you might check out the New York Times article by Margaret Roach titled "Why You Should Plant Oaks." That's from March 31, 2021. The article notes, quote, these large, long-lived trees support more life forms than any other trees in North America. And of the food eaten by insects, birds, and other animals, 75% comes from a few key genera, and oaks lead the list. Already in our city's parkways, we are seeing the practice of replacing mature large trees, oaks being among them, with crepe myrtles and similar small trees that contribute very little in the way of promoting biodiversity, reducing the heat island effect, sequestering carbon, and so forth. All those great things that OSC 2.5 laid out for us that our urban forest can do. They don't do too much of that. Our urban forest, it's one of the great living resources and legacies that will provide continuous benefits to area residents and wildlife now and for generations to come, but only if the tree species included and prioritized are those that best promote those benefits. I want to thank you very much for your time and consideration. That concludes my comments.
Natasha, you can go ahead with your comments.
Good evening. My name is Natasha Walton. I'm a wildlife biologist and advocate for our trees, natural space, and quality of life in Upland. Please postpone your vote to recommend the updated 2021 Upland Urban Forest Management Plan on today's agenda. Although there are some great aspects of this new management plan, I ask that you delay your recommendation of this plan to allow time for you and the city to discuss and considering the following request concerns. So these are concerns that I had emailed earlier today, but I'm just going to go through them quickly. Number one, the plan should require that the following sentences be included as they are found on page 17 of the 1997 Urban Forestry Plan for Upland. I currently don't see it in the plan. And it says, any proposed revisions to the list of approved trees shall be presented to the public for consideration and a discussion at regularly scheduled open meetings of the Street Tree Advisory Committee. A recommendation of the Street Tree Advisory Committee is required of any revision to the list and is subject to the final approval of the City Council, unquote. Number two, the plan does not, but it should support policy OSC 2.5 of the Upland General Plan to prioritize the planting of large street tree species, graded to or equal to 50 feet in height. The top 10 choices in the approved street tree palette in the packet and in the plan includes only one large shade tree, the strawberry tree, that can grow 40 to 50 feet tall. In fact, the first tree listed, the crepe myrtle, only grows to a height of 20 feet and is actually considered a shrub more than a tree. The plan, number three, the plan does not, but should include native California trees, an important component of saving our region's biodiversity, our native birds and pollinators, etc. With the exception, you do have one native species on the list, that's the incense cedar. But contrary to the name, the California pepper is not native to California. Many native oaks grace our community and provide ample shade throughout our city. In fact, a recent scientific study in Los Angeles by Dr. Eric Wood of Cal State LA indicates that native birds favor the native coast live oak and California sycamore over most other non-native street tree species, including the crepe myrtle. In comparison, Claremont has 4 large native oaks, coast live oak, valley oak, Engelmann oak, and interior live oak on its designated street tree list, along with a few other large native trees, such as the California sycamore. According to Claremont's tree list, these native oaks are planted in parkways 8 feet to 10 feet plus wide, and Upland has many parkways within the size range that do not have trees. Number 4, the plan should ensure the protection of bats be included under the wildlife best management practices during tree trimming and removal. Bat species are considered beneficial to our ecological health, and public health concerns can be avoided by not handling them without protective equipment like leather gloves and ensuring that pets are vaccinated for rabies. We have certain species like the western red bat and western yellow bat that are known to roost in trees, particularly palm fronds. In the maternity season, this is when the bats have their babies, runs from March 1st to August 31st, so they cannot necessarily take their babies with them if they have to leave. Also, one more point. Find it in my notes here. Sorry, I lost my spot. I also asked that the plan could also require a policy to require new developers to provide ample parkway space for our larger street trees. More recent developments, such as the colonies, only provide enough room for small palm trees to occupy their parkways. So our city immediately limits the potential for large city trees in many of our new developments. I also asked that more further discussion occur to perhaps help start a new a street tree ordinance so that we can protect not just our public trees, but also our private trees. So that would be great to be able to figure out a city tree ordinance. Pasadena has one. A lot of other cities have these. Thank you for your time and consideration. I did include several links to several tree articles that I hope you were able to read. Please do not recommend this plan at this time. We need some more time. The public needs more time to discuss this with you. Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
Are there any members of the public who would like to speak tonight?
Yes, state your
Good evening. My name is Raymond Wetzel, and I'm here in regards to a Chinese elm that is on my parkway on 9th Avenue and the corner of Arrow Highway. I understand that it is green, but however, due to safety reasons that occurred last October when we had the winds, one of the trees fell over, was uprooted, and crushed my truck, and the second one started falling. It's bent, but did not uproot. And I have been, excuse me, have been talking with Mr. Yu in regards to this, and I understand that it's green and you have guidelines, but it has come to a point that due to the fact of improper maintenance on it, to where it is top heavy to the street side, that the weight is pulling it towards the street and away from my house. The sidewalks have had to be ground because it rose the concrete. My driveway entrance is totally cracked all over the place, and I'm requesting that this tree be removed also, mainly because of safety issues, that if we do get other high winds, that it will topple over. And 9th Avenue is heavily traveled of people trying to beat the traffic at San Bernardino and Arrow. And they use 9th Avenue to cut across. And I would hate to see this tree fall on somebody that's driving down the street. And, but in regards to that, I would also like to see 2 new trees planted in their place. Just like those ladies were talking about, creating a canopy. Since the one tree fell and the heat has built up into my house, and I've spent more money this past summer, for AC compared to the previous year since I've lived there. So that is my concern, and that is my request, that this tree be considered to be removed, mainly on a safety factor.
Thank you. Since we don't have any other speakers, I'll turn it back over to you, Chair Ickes.
All right, thank you. So we will now go into old business, item number 4, which appears to be none. So that means we go to number 5, which is new business. And that starts with orientation and Brown Act training. Sorry, I'm not speaking into that.
And our first presenter on that is our new city manager, Michael Blay.
Good evening. All 3 of you are new to this committee? Is that correct? One new member? Oh, okay. Well, it's my 3rd day, so I'm new too. We got that in common. Welcome. And so part of my introduction is to the city itself before Carrie kind of gets into the Brown Act itself, but just to give you an idea of what this committee does and how the city operates. So the city of Upland operates on a council manager form of government. And what that does is there are 5 elected officials, 4 district council members and a mayor who are elected by the citizens of this community. The mayor is at large, elected by all of the citizens, and the council members by their respective districts. They choose a city manager and are responsible for hiring a professional city manager to run the day-to-day operations of the city. So the council itself is the legislative body. They set the legislative priorities and determine the budget and those kind of items. And I implement the day-to-day management of the city. So the employees report to me rather than the mayor or the council. And then the council in open session will direct me or direct staff as appropriate. And so the city is broken up into a number of city departments. The Administrative Services Department, that is directed by our Assistant City Manager, that's Stephen Parker. He's also the Finance Director, and that covers the City Clerk's Office, the Finance Department, Human Resources, IT, the Library, and the Recreation and Community Services Department. The Development Services Department is overseen by the Director, Bob Dahlquist. Covers building and safety, economic development, housing, and planning. The Police Department is overseen by our Chief, Darren Goodman. They have an administrative duty, obviously the police operations, and he also oversees code enforcement and our animal control officers who work out in the field. And then finally, you know Mr. Yu, he's the Director of Public Works. He has an administration department, and then he oversees the engineering, our capital improvement projects, which are the large-scale projects, street, water infrastructure projects that you see throughout the city, development and transportation, facilities, operations, and our utilities, which is our water system. So the primary role of the committees, the city has 11 total committees, and the primary role is to provide citizen input related to the specific committee. So in this case, it's the street trees, and as you well know, Upland is a city of beautiful trees. And the committee is responsible for providing that citizen input to our staff as it relates, in this case, to our city's trees. The agenda is made by staff. So if you have an inquiry about a specific topic that you'd like to inquire about, please ask staff, and they will, if appropriate, agendize that item. The committee will provide feedback to staff, which will be ultimately reported to the city council for direction. So the city council is the governing body, and they'll be the decision making. So I think you can look at your panel like as an advisory role to both staff as part with your input, and also to the city council, who ultimately is responsible for making those decisions. One of the things that I'll tell you, staff is thin, like most places, and so I want to please ask politely that you not burden them with requests that will take up a significant amount of staff time, as they all have additional roles that they need to fulfill throughout the day. So please, be conscientious about that. They're here to provide you the information and mostly receive information from you as well in the pursuit of their duties. The staff liaison is who you will communicate directly with, and that person will compile the information provided to me and as well as the city council. So if you can see in the slide, the very next slide, there you go. That's the committees that we have throughout the city. So there are 11 of them. That's a lot of committees. Some cities of like size have 3 or 4. So we have a robust number of committees and staff members assigned to all of those committees. So you can see when I say stretched thin, you can see wide. So on the legislative committees, those are also attended by 2 council members. The Economic Development Committee, the Finance Committee, Public Safety, and Public Works. And then the advisory committees, which are joined, the committee is joined by staff members as opposed to elected officials. CDBG is just the Community Development Block Grant. Those are administered by the Housing and Urban Development Department of the federal government. Each year, cities get money to invest in low to moderate income areas with that. So there's a committee that advises the council on nonprofits and other items to spend that money. The City Council Advisory Committee, the new one, which is the Environmental Sustainability Committee. The Library Board, Parks, that's just an acronym for Parks and Community Resources. The Street Tree Committee, that's you. Building Board of Appeals and the Personnel Board of Review. Does anybody have any questions about that? I know I kind of ran through it fast out of respect for your time. No?
I have a quick question.
Sure.
What's the difference between the legislative committees and the advisory committees?
The legislative committees are attended by 2 council members, which is essentially an ad hoc committee. So when our city clerk talks about the Brown Act, she'll tell you the difference between having 2 council members present and 3, which would be a majority of the council.
Thank you.
Uh-huh. Turn it over to Carrie.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. So what we're going to cover today is going to be a broad overview of the Brown Act. And so if at any time you have a question or something comes up that you're not sure about, please feel free to reach out to my office or to your staff liaison, and we'll make sure your question gets answered. So first, let's cover the history of the Brown Act and why we have it. In 1952, a journalist named Michael Harris wrote a series of articles for the San Francisco Journal that chronicled how commissions, boards, and special districts were having meetings behind closed doors without notifying the public or giving the public an opportunity to participate. While this was illegal at the time, the legislature decided that that needed to be made more clear. So Assemblymember Ralph M. Brown authored the Brown Act, and in 1953 it was signed into law. It's been amended many times since then. One of the most recent ones addresses social media, and we'll talk about that a little bit more later. So there's 3 major principles of the Brown Act: notice to the public, an opportunity for the public to be heard, and then transparency in decision-making. The whole idea behind the act is that things don't happen behind closed doors and that there's transparency in your government. So what is a meeting? So our city manager, Michael Blay, touched on that a little bit, where once you have a majority of members gathered to discuss a topic, it's a meeting. And every meeting has to be properly noticed and agendized, and you can only discuss those items that are on the agenda. So with your group, you're actually a 5-member committee, so 3 is your majority, and even though there's only 3 appointed at this time, it still goes by 5, so we need all of you here actually to have a meeting. So, and what is not considered a meeting? There are opportunities for you all to get together and not be considered a meeting, and that's if you're all attending a public conference or other community meetings here in the city, or ceremonial events. Like if you all attended the Veterans event today, that's not an issue. You can even sit together, though we encourage you not to. You just can't discuss anything that would be under the purview of your committee. There's a way for there to be a meeting without the 3 of you gathering together at the same time, and that's called a serial meeting. So if one of you were to call a committee member and say, hey, what do you think about this item that's coming before us next meeting? And then that member calls a 3rd member, you now have a violation of the Brown Act because a majority of the members have discussed it. So even though you all didn't get together, it is a violation. And that's just one way. That's called a daisy chain meeting. And there's another way, it's called a hub and spoke. If one of you were to call all the members and start polling them about an opinion about something, even though you haven't all gathered, it's still a violation of the Brown Act. And that can happen via email or text message or even on social media. So you have to be really cautious in your communications outside of a meeting. And you'll notice that whenever I email committee members, you're always BCC'd. And that's so that if you reply all, you don't inadvertently violate the Brown Act. And that's just another way to avoid having something like that happen. So I just touched on that a little bit. But social media is, very prevalent in our society today, and that's why the legislature went back and decided that they needed to address that in the Brown Act. And it's actually very strict in the Brown Act. So you can friend each other on social media, you can follow each other on social media, but even clicking like on something that mentions anything about the street tree committee, something that's coming before the committee, if you like their comment, it's actually considered a violation of the Brown Act. So if you are friends, you know, if you make comments or likes, it should only be on personal things. Like if Julie commented on something that she did on the weekend that was fun, that's okay. But you really shouldn't comment or like anything that would be under the purview of your committee. So now we're going to move on to requirements. You notice that you all get an agenda that's, it spells out everything that you're going to discuss. It has the date and time of the meeting and the location. And that has to be posted and distributed to the public and all of you 72 hours before the meeting. And so whenever it goes out to you, it also goes out to, we have a requested list for members of the public that want to be made aware of these. We post it on our website, and then we also post it in 3 locations here in the city. And that's required 24 hours in advance for special meetings. And that's just to give the public an opportunity to know what's going to be discussed and if they want to come here and have the opportunity to talk about it. You notice that all of our committee agendas and city council agendas include oral communications before any agenda items that have business. And that's because members of the public have to be provided that opportunity to speak before you make any decisions on any items. So there are times that the Brown Act will be violated, and usually it's inadvertent, and if it happens, it is our responsibility to cure and correct that. So if there was something discussed that wasn't on the agenda, the proper thing would be to, you know, put it on the next agenda, give the public an opportunity to discuss it, and if a decision was made, to reverse that decision and go back and discuss it in an open meeting. There is part of the Brown Act that addresses criminal prosecution for Brown Act violations, but that would have to be repeated and intentional violations of the Brown Act. But it just goes to show that it is taken very seriously. Now, does anybody have any questions about the Brown Act before I move on?
Did something happen that brought this on in the past?
No, we're actually going through this training with all of the committees right now just because we have new committees and a lot of new committee members. And as, you know, citizens of the public, it's not something that you necessarily have to think about on a day-to-day basis. So we just want to have everybody that's on our committees have an understanding and to know that if you have questions that you can always call our office or staff and get that clarified for you. So that's why we're providing this to everybody now. Any other questions? Okay, so we'll move on to this. So the responsibilities as a committee member are basically attend the meetings, be properly prepared, demonstrate respect to your fellow committee members and to the members of the public that have come. You know, sometimes it's hard for members of the public to get up and speak in front of a committee, so just being respectful. And then if you can't attend, to let staff know as soon as possible, especially in our case here, you know, like I said, if one of you can't attend, we would have to cancel the meeting and reschedule. So, you know, just be aware of that and try to give us as much notice as possible if you can't attend. And then the chair, as you learned tonight, we have to have a chair. And the chair presides over the meeting, moves us through the agenda items, and then also ensures that all the members have the opportunity to speak before you make any decisions, and also that the members of the public get to speak. And that's it. Does anybody have any more questions? Well, thank you all for your time tonight.
Thank you.
Turn it back over to you, Chair Ickes.
Okay, so that would be now item 5B, which is introductions. Craig, go ahead. Should we do city staff as well?
So let me frame this up. So obviously we have new members to the committee as well as to the staff. And so we wanted to give this opportunity for us to be able to introduce ourselves or reintroduce ourselves to you so that you know who we are and what our roles are. I know we came in and shook hands, but this is also for the public to get to know where we stand. So I'll start off the introductions for city staff, which is primarily going to be your liaisons through the Street Tree Committee. My name is Braden Yu. I'm the Public Works Director over at the city. I've been here since February, so I am new. And so I'm learning with you guys, and I hope you guys can be patient with me as I go through this process. Rich, can you go ahead and introduce yourself? Oh, turn it on. Green.
Hello, yes, I'm Richard Smitterly, the Operations Manager for Public Works, which the street, trees, urban forest I oversee that along with the street maintenance, park maintenance, building facilities, and fleet maintenance department.
I'm Brett Lance, Operations Supervisor. Pretty much do everything that Richard explained, but the operations day-to-day stuff. Oh, it's also the city arborist.
I'm Craig Anderson, certified arborist. I've been here for about 4 years, sitting on the board, and it's a pleasure.
John Ickes, certified arborist as well. I've lived in the city of Upland since 2012, I think, somewhere around there, 2011 maybe. And I've been pretty interested in the city's urban forest somewhere around 2013. Had some real significant impacts in my life by the public works director and staff at that time, which is nobody here. And by the way, thank you guys for coming out on Veterans Day. Really appreciate that. I know this is a holiday. I'm also a public employee, so I'm surprised you guys are here. Yeah, so 2013, and then just more and more interested. I've been attending these meetings for probably, I don't know, 6 or 7 years, and met Councilman Zuniga through, I don't know, just general, maybe Facebook or some kind of political stuff, and he gave me the opportunity to join this committee, and I'm excited to be here, and I love trees. Next.
Hello, my name is Julie Garcia. I am also very excited to be on this committee. I have wanted to serve the city of Upland for a while. I currently serve on I'm the chair actually of the Colonies Landscape Committee. I am not a certified arborist or anything, but I do love trees. And I didn't prepare a speech, so. I have also been here about 10 years in the area, and I'm just really looking forward to this appointment and grateful for the opportunity. And I did want to thank the veterans and their families for their sacrifice and their service.
Thank you, and that, as far as I know, that concludes our introductions. And so we will now go on to item 5C, which is tree removal requests.
Sure. So just to kick it off, there's limitations for what we can take down as trees based on the municipal code. Part of it is that if a tree is in imminent safety or danger because of disease or anything, that gives the right for the Public Works Department to take down that tree. Other areas where we can take down trees is because of damage to the public infrastructure. Obviously, all other reasons we are not allowed to take down trees. And if a resident does want to take down a tree, they have a chance to appeal that request to the street tree committee. If they don't like that decision, they can then go to the city manager who will have the final decision. But I think it's an important role that you guys serve because you help determine and give a voice to the public for what their concerns are. Currently, we have 2 such cases that have come up. As you've seen, Mr. Wetzel had come up to talk about his tree and his condition. He did have a tree that recently went down, as he mentioned. It was removed, and his concern is going to be shown here. I guess, Brett, are you taking this, or Richard?
Sure. So there was a tree. So this is 9th Avenue. This is Arrow to the north. So he's on the corner. When we had the last big wind in October 2020, there was a tree, there was a tree over here, and it fell and crushed his truck that was parked right here. Completely hit the cab and everything. So we removed that tree, obviously, from the windstorm. It was completely uprooted. The parkway was really saturated. All the roots came up and everything. So we removed that. So his concern is this tree. It's the smallest tree on the street, on 9th Avenue. It goes down to, what's the next street down there? Washington. So it's the smallest Chinese elm on the street. That is his concern that it's going to fall. It is leaning a little bit to the west, but to me it's pretty stable, but I wish I could see underground to see if the roots were like the other ones. So, but the canopy is really open. It's got nice branch structure. It's not real heavy. So it's still medium size, but that's his main concern. Yeah. So I believe there's only a small little lift right there. It's maybe, I believe it's like a ½ inch, if that. And then this one, this area is already marked for repair, removal and repair on our sidewalk repair contract. Yeah, concrete contract, sorry. So that'll be repaired soon. The driveway. And it's lifted right there a little bit, obviously from the roots. I think that was about it. There's a little lift there too. Yeah, part of it's solid concrete, and then it turns into cobble or rock curbing, and then it keeps going down the street.
So that's 906 East Arrow Highway. Are we ready to vote on this? I've been to the field. I've looked at the situation. Are you guys ready to go ahead and make a decision on this?
No.
No.
Brett, can you provide kind of your recommendations so that at least they understand where the city stance is?
Yeah, so the history of it was that tree in particular was pruned last was July of 2013, and then June of 2017, and then the last was June of 2020. So it was right before, 4 months before the winds hit. My recommendation is just keep an eye on it. I've already taken several pictures, even in the last few months. If the lean increases, then obviously it's going to get uprooted, and we could possibly take it out then or discuss it. But I recommend leaving it because the canopy is open. And so.
Yeah, I can have a discussion.
Yeah, so we're more than happy to take any questions.
Okay, I too drove by this house, and actually I thought it was the tree on the other side of the house
yeah.
next to the driveway.
Yeah, I didn't know either.
Because the picture that you guys sent out was of the other side of the house. So anyway, regardless. So my question, Brett, to you, is this tree dead? No.
No.
Is the tree diseased?
No.
Is the tree posing a hazard or an emergency, a threat to public safety?
No. I have to say, it is one of the kind of semi-deciduous varieties of the Chinese elm that we have, because the tops are kind of losing their leaves right now.
That's all I need to know.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'd like to vote to deny the appeal to remove the tree. In other words, do not remove the tree.
I second that.
So we have a unanimous decision to deny the appeal to remove the tree.
Okay, so we're going to move on to the second house. I believe was a little confusion on the location, so we're going to try to get you the correct location. I apologize.
Yeah, I went and knocked on the guy's door today. He's all, appeal what? I was like, you either want something removed or not want something removed. He's like, no, that's not me.
So it was in the cul-de-sac itself. It is, okay. Nope. So it is one of the pine trees right there. It's near closest to the mailbox. So I apologize if you went out to do research. We probably could have gave you a little bit better directions. One of the things that we want to point out is that you can see the uplift of the sidewalk. Now, we actually had someone measure that, and that turns out to be about a 14% slope on the sidewalk. The resident that currently lives there is a veteran who's handicapped. I believe he only has one leg. And so on this particular tree, Brett can speak to the tree. I can speak to the asset by itself. But because of the severe ramping of that sidewalk, the only way to improve it, other than to do the asphalt ramp, which we have done there, as you can see, is really to take that out, cut the roots, and straighten out that sidewalk. Okay. I just want to put something in context for you. We have this whole neighborhood scheduled to be paved sidewalk and whatever trees that are affected to be removed in 2023. There is a project for that. Okay. There's many cases just like this throughout the whole neighborhood. So I just want to put it in context that this is not isolated. But it was a request, so we wanted to take it seriously and bring forth to the committee. Brett, can you speak to the condition of the tree?
Sure, this tree is pretty healthy. It's pretty upright. It's not too heavy. It is the same size as just about any other tree in that area of Ukiah and Vallejo and Pearl. And so there's, in that community and block of streets, there's about 96, I believe, pine trees, about the same that, well, I won't talk about the damage it's doing, but yeah, the whole area is going to get redone. But as far as the tree, my estimate is that root goes pretty much straight into his front yard. And my guess, it's at least 12 inches in diameter, maybe even more. If there's more, and if there's more than one, I really can't see it because based on the flare, obviously pine trees don't have a huge flare, but just from progression of that lift, it's a decent sized root. But it's not affecting, as far as I know, we haven't gotten a report of his affecting his water meter or his sewer or anything. He was just more worried about it in his yard. Because when I started 4 years ago, that was his main concern, and kind of told him, hey, this is the history of it, and we really can't take the tree out. It's pretty healthy.
I believe his main complaints are always pine cones and sap and pine needles all over the place. The only thing that I would say that an ADA ramp usually is an 8.33% grade for a ramp for ADA compliance. This is not a ramp. This is just a sidewalk. So it doesn't qualify as a ramp. But if you take a look at the degree of lift at 14%, it is significantly higher, but for a short distance. So those are considerations. Based on health, would you recommend removing it based on health?
No.
So then it comes to based off infrastructure removal. It is already planned for it in 2023, I believe. So it is identified. I only say that due to the condition of the person who lives there, I don't want to see any type of liability for the city, and I'm okay with removing it personally. But as we say, I'm limited to what I can do. So even though he has made the request, and basically since we have a plan to remove it, at this time I would not recommend to remove it. But we leave it to the committee. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Yes, Mr. Yu, am I to understand then that this tree, as well as the other trees, it's already been decided, approved, that the trees will be removed?
Yeah, I'm not sure how the project's going. I do know that this was already decided for this neighborhood to have any of the areas that had those uplifts for those trees to be removed, from my understanding.
Thank you.
Are we ready to take a vote?
The the tree's already been approved to be removed in a year and a half.
That's true. Yep.
I think the tree's healthy. I think root pruning would be a huge liability for the city. I would not root prune. I would figure out another way to save the tree. It's a big tree. I think he doesn't like the pine needles and the pollen that comes off it, is what I think. And the ramp doesn't even look, I know where there's that much in Upland, 100 times over. That's pretty level.
So that's a,
Keep the tree.
okay. I will second that, keep the tree, and deny motion.
Okay.
That's a yes, Julie?
Yes.
Okay, so we have 3 votes to deny the appeal to remove the tree.
Thank you very much.
I do want to just make a quick note on these 2 requests that I appreciate it, and it's the first ones of this nature, and I love the process of the appeals, and I thank both residents who entertained the process, and I hope to see more. We are here to serve the public, volunteer members of the public, and I am more than happy to go look at a tree anytime. So I'm happy to, you know, as a citizen of the city, just to go look at a tree. And it was a really exciting experience. So thank you to the residents.
I agree.
So that concludes 5C, and we're now on to 5D.
Okay, so I think the last urban forest management plan was done. Brett, can you recall when it was done?
Yeah, 1997.
1997. So West Coast Arborist was able to get a grant to update the urban forest management plan. And so with, since they've got the grant, they did prepare it, and they got a lot of input and collaboration from the city staff to make this preparation. Now, we did present this to the city council as a receive and file, but this document can't be really certified until the old resolution has been canceled and the new document been accepted by council. Process-wise, we realized that we should have been able to take it to the street tree committee for review and presentation of what the document is. But we kept on having a lack of quorum for almost a year, so it was very difficult to try to bring this forward, and we wanted to make sure that we were in compliance with the grant. Since it's been received, and now that we have a quorum, we do want to present this document to you and the fundamentals of what it stands for, and have a chance for you guys to have comment. I could say that the tree list that's in the document is not consistent with the tree list that you have approved in the past. And so that is definitely something that we can update so that we are consistent for what you guys have passed previously. But with that, I want to have Brett be able to, or Rich, to be able to make that presentation to you guys for your consideration.
Just to clarify, the last street tree committee we had was in November of last year, and we had that presentation of this document through West Coast Arborist. And at that time, I believe we didn't have much input as far as any issues with it. And then we had planned to revisit it going forward, but during that time, the committee went to the next year, and we had to gather, the whole committee members back, and now we're here a year later to finalize it.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Smitterly. So what I can say about this is I do recall the presentation from West Coast Arborist, but I would like to table this item if possible at this time due to the public comment. We have pretty extensive public comment, and I know we have had the opportunity to provide input thus far, but since it's been a year, I lost track of where we were on this urban forest management plan. And although I am confident West Coast Arborists did a good job, my recommendation at this point would be to meet back in 30 days or 60 days, whatever it may be. And now that we have a established street tree advisory committee, we could now kind of get a better feel on what's going on and take a full look at this. And it's going to take some time. I do appreciate your email that I received on what was it, Saturday or Friday, maybe even Thursday. Sorry, it was plenty of time, but I'm just saying that it's a big document. It's very important, and the public comment just came in today, and I would like to consider that. So.
I'd just like to add and keep in mind that this is a maintenance document. So some of the comments that stated, well, we should have more parkway as such, that really should be addressed in the general plan for planning documents so that when a new development comes in, it goes through that process. Because this is really addressing more maintenance and proper maintenance procedures, something would be constructed by that particular time. So I'm just trying to address at least one or two of these comments that have been presented. We do have a tree ordinance. That's the reason why things have to be taken to you, and it tells us what we can and cannot do to a tree based on its condition. So I wasn't prepared to go over each comment on some of these things, but we're more than happy to give you a chance to review. Is all you need is a chance to review the document, or did you want a presentation? How would you want this be presented to you for consideration in the future?
Go ahead, Julie.
I have had a chance to review the new plan. I'm just curious how the process works as far as there's a few contradictions between this plan and our current the tree ordinance.
Tree
Thank
care
you.
ordinance.
Tree care ordinance. I have about 5 points in the document that I'd like to, not right now, but that's what I'm asking. At when and how do we get our recommendations to you guys? Does it have to be during the committee meeting?
We're more than happy to take the comments at a later time. And then when we present it back, we can better present your answers to the whole committee as a whole. And so if what you're asking us to do is to move this to another date, you can provide us your comments at any time, and then we will address it as part of a presentation in the future.
That's a great question, Julie, because I was also confused about that. We had been asked to provide comments, I believe, at the last street tree committee meeting, but I wasn't sure if we were supposed to submit to the city representative or wait till the committee meeting. So just to clarify, Mr. Yu, you are saying to email or which format to submit our comments?
I think it's best that you email it to either any three of us. Actually, it'd probably be best to send it to all three of us so that we can make sure that we get it and then we can address it properly in the future.
Okay, very good. Craig, comments? Okay, so
I wanted to clarify a couple items. One of them was the document. It states that we are talking about city-owned trees, city-owned or controlled trees, not private trees. And then the other one, to clarify, on page 19, we have the tree palette that's listed, which is about 35 trees. And this is the palette that the tree committee has been working on for several years. If you remember, we revisit that tree palette during times of the capital improvement projects, whatever we're doing, and we come to you and we identify the area of the capital improvement and which trees would go back into those areas that be best fitted for that particular situation. So that document or that list on page 19 is what we've been working on more recently with you all. At least the two that were here before. And the
Um,
others.
Yeah, Mr. Smitterly, we're gonna need to kind of clarify that because even for myself, I've been here sometime, but I'm not sure what is the official list because there was several that were floating around. So are you referring to something like that, or is it the one in the?
The one that's in the current
Okay.
management plan on page 19.
Yeah, we're going to want to work on that. We're going to want to work on that list.
Yeah, that's fine.
So we will provide comments, and then I also recommend that we meet once a month. I know this has been brought up in the past, but the once every 2 months, when a meeting gets canceled, then it goes to 4 months. And that's why we met like twice in 2019, or maybe 3 times. But that's not on the agenda, so I'm sorry I'm bringing that up.
Actually, we're meeting quarterly now.
Quarterly, so that would be every 2 months.
3.
Every 3 months, okay, got it. So this item will be on the agenda at the next meeting, is that correct?
If you're moving it to bring it back, we will definitely bring it back for you guys.
That's correct. Yes, that's what we're moving.
Okay.
Unanimously.
Not a problem. Well, is there, I guess that's,
So any other comments on item 5D?
No?
Hearing none, we shall go to item 6, which is called adjournment. Thank you all for attending.
Thank you.
All right,
Thank you, John.
thanks, appreciate it.